So, apologies, guys. Apologies. We are back. We had a little technical issue there with a piece of paper. Go figure. 2021 technology there. We are back with David Lappin and Leigh. Leigh, you were just telling us about David's podcast prowess. Let's continue from there.
Very much. Yeah, he's handsome. Basically, that's all I need to say. Handsome is pretty much it. That's the gist of it. I think most of you will have got most. But say if you don't know David, go and check him out. He's a Unibet ambassador and does a lot of podcasts and a lot of writing, and he's very, very handsome. Very handsome. Very handsome indeed.
Do you know, Leigh, before we get him into the chat, what I tend to recognise David for is being very honest. Right. Oh my gosh, we've just lost Leigh. I'm sure he'll bounce back. Being very, very honest, David. I really like that about your podcasting, your communications generally. It's a great place to be. Not everybody in poker is very, very honest. In a lot of instances, they tend to worry a little bit about what people think, and you end up getting that as opposed to necessarily quality. Quality is good.
Yeah. Firstly, I'd like to thank Leigh for mentioning my handsomeness unprompted, completely unprompted. And secondly, I would like to say that I like the use of the word honest as opposed to the words that people normally use, which are obnoxious and abrasive and confrontational. So thank you for that.
Beautiful. I think this could be a good show. Right. Has anyone? I haven't even checked yet to see whether it's running. Well, I mean, it's running. It's definitely running. But to see whether there's anybody on there asking any questions, anything like that. So I'll get on with that sort of stuff. Leigh, why don't you share with us what the guys are playing tonight? Quite a lot of tourneys going on, and then maybe young David can tell us what he's playing.
Yeah, let's run through what's on the APAT schedule tonight. For those of you that are normally here on a Sunday night, it is the end of our leaderboard ladders week. As always, 4 tournaments. First one started at 5 o'clock. That was the Sunday Deep Stack. 73 runners in that. That's already concluded. Alexander Chang from Germany picks up top prize there, over $200. Kuba Denks from Hungary in second place, and Jason Skinner from Canada in third. So well done to all, how many was it? 13 of you that cashed in that. Very well done indeed. 7 o'clock, we kicked off with the No Limit Hold'em Sunday main event. $2,500 guarantee in that. We've smashed that over $2,750 in that tonight.
Great.
That's paying a top 15. We're down to 10 now, so we're getting close to that final table. Almaz Kamatov from Russia is currently chip leader in that, with a couple of Brazilian players chasing. Richard King, who everyone will know, the Chocolate King from the Advent Calendar promo, regularly goes deep in these events on a Sunday night. He's currently still got chips there as well. 8 o'clock, the PLO main event, and that's got 9 runners left. That's paying top 5 tonight. Gordon MacArthur, Richard Rudling-Smith, Tony Ross, Tom Banks, Patrick Coulter are all in there at the moment with chips in those final 9. And then the last one of the week started at 9 o'clock. $500 guaranteed, but we never worry about that. It's $640 in the prize pool. It's the Turbo Knockout. 64 runners in that. We're down to 22. We're paying top 11. Tom Bacon is currently chip leader in that one. So regular APAT player there. So I will keep you updated. As I said to Des, I've got a feeling this week's leaderboard ladders might cost us a little bit in added value prizes, because there's a couple of guys that are up on steps 4 and 5.
Wow.
We're in the top 20 this week. So the Ferrari fund is going to take a dent, Mr. Duffy.
Oh, Leigh, listen, we must shortly hit a point whereby the cost of a hitman is slightly less than the cost of the recurring fees that these guys, who are these people? They come on here every week. They charge us money. It's outrageous.
Yeah, 1 or 2 of these recreational players are starting to cost us a little bit in added value budget. We're going to have a look at it. So that's what's going on with APAT. David, tell us, what have you been playing on Unibet? What are you still playing? I mean, what's a normal Sunday night on Unibet for you?
A normal Sunday night on Unibet is basically all the games 25 and up. So we have a schedule that's sort of built around our flagship tournament of the week, the Supernova. That's a €100 buy-in tournament, which I'm delighted to say, from the punter's point of view, has overlaid the last 3 weeks in a row. Get some of that summer value if you're out there, guys. We are looking at probably a $3,500 overlay on that 20K.
Wow.
Tonight. So yeah, I'm in that one. That's actually the one I think you might have on your screen. I'm also in the Odyssey, which is our 50 quid buy and 6k guarantee. And I'm still in the Neptune rebuy, which is a bit further along. There's probably only about 2 tables left in that one. So that one's been going okay. Bust everything else on Unibet, but I was playing Baba Bounty and all the 100 quid, 50 quid kind of stuff that we have. I'm also on a few rival sites. Won't give them too much love. Very quickly dived onto the mute settings on my computer, because I thought, well, that would be very bad if you started hearing recognizable other sites noise effects. So if however, little very thin brag here, if I hadn't got to the button quick enough, you would have heard the sound of me cashing one of them. Just saying.
Oh, nice.
Hey,
Congrats.
excellent.
Well done. Well done.
I
Describe the sound.
I feel that's a whole quiz round we should be doing. This is an audio piece from a poker site. Which poker site is it? Yeah,
it's nice. I like that. Yeah.
Unless it's a cash sound, at which point a lot of players are going to go, oh, don't recognize that. No.
Yeah.
So
this is one of those. Yeah.
This is good. So you are a high volume player, David. You multi-table at pretty chunky numbers. I mean, typically, how many tables are you tempted to start, or might you be found playing at any one time?
I'm an old man now, so it's nothing compared to what it once was. But I guess I probably at peak these days like 24 table, which I'm sure to some people sounds like, oh my God, that's a crazy number of games. But I used to 40 table back in the day when I was young and had faster fingers, and probably played on like 1 or 2 sites rather than across all the networks. So it was a bit easier in those days, and I was a bit sharper. Also, people were worse, and you could make clunkier decisions and get away with it.
Yeah. And what impact do you think does it have on your decision making, going from 40 to 24? Or, should you choose, for example, to go with 6 or 8 or whatever? I mean, does it give you more time to decide? Does that increase the quality of your work, or are you pretty calm around that?
There's probably a sweet spot for everyone.
Yeah.
Like I remember going from 1 table to 2 tables and it being intimidating right when I started playing. And then I remember going from 2 to 4 and 4 to 6 and whatnot. So you do kind of build it up, and you build up your ability to make the decisions quickly. You're probably using your fast fold button a little bit. You're probably just, you have your ranges fairly nailed on, and that helps. Could be probably playing this hand in the Supernova. I know you guys have that one on screen right now. I'm going to open this one up, so I won't obviously reveal, just in case there's any dirty snipers out there. I'm not going to let you know what I have, but it is an openable hand from the cutoff. I have been flattered here. 10-8, 5-2 clubs.
Do you find on the site players play differently because you're one of the sponsors? Obviously, you've got your own special avatar there and everything. Do you become a target?
I don't know, to be honest. I would say that maybe to some people, but the problem you have as the person with the avatar on Unibet is you don't know who you're up against. So you're allowed change your avatar and your username or your screen name, if you like, as often as you like. So with that advantage comes essentially anonymity. We're going to call it off here with the queens. There's no sense in raising here. I could be beat, probably winning, not winning. So glad I didn't raise it up there with the queens. So we did get turned there with the queens and check back the turn. So probably prevented disaster there with that check back. Still have 25 bigs. So I don't know. So unless I'm playing against Ian Simpson or Darrell O'Carney, who also have their avatars out, I don't really know. I can't really ascertain the leveling war that might be taking place. But in general on Unibet, I think there is probably just a tendency to be a little wilder. So, that's a sort of a population tendency within the site. I don't think it's anything particular to like people playing against me.
Yeah, but given those set of circumstances, David, I mean, as a pro, right, that's a serious disadvantage that you're setting yourself against your opponents on a day-by-day basis. Presumably that means, and obviously no secrets here, that you're likely making the majority of your tournament income, shall we say, across a multitude of sites as opposed to just one? Would that, because you've got greater advantages, or certainly you can play to your strengths elsewhere. So Unibet's about much more for you than just playing, right? And for what it's worth, I mean, I love their software. I love their approach. It's very rec friendly. They were a business, you know, over the last 4 to 5 years that invested in poker when many other businesses were not investing in poker. I knew the team over there quite well. So I have a lot of time for Unibet and what they do. But describe your relationship with them. So, you know, what do they get from you, for example? And obviously you've renewed with them on a couple of occasions. So clearly each of you are providing value to the other. You know, what's your role with them as such, David?
Yeah, like you find on a lot of different poker sites, they have their ambassador teams and their pro teams or whatever they call them.
Yeah.
And essentially, I'm part of that with Unibet. I suppose what has become culturally significant in the world of like people being pros and people being representatives of this nature is that the industry has moved much closer to kind of a content creation model. I'm going to fire again here. You see the third diamond came off here. It's certainly a card that, you know, he could have 2 diamonds for sure if you're narrowing him down. 4th diamond is interesting.
Does that scare us?
We'll have to see what he does here, to be honest. I am definitely checking back here. I have jacks, and it's just too likely he might have a hand like Jack 10 with the 10 of diamonds here.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that would be and Ace 4 with the 4 diamonds. 4 diamonds, not bad for the steel wheel there. I could have got myself in some trouble again. Bit unlucky with the run out there, but that's the way it goes. I think I was probably looking at it there. Yeah, on the flop, I was probably a solid 98%. That was a pretty stinking run out.
So how do you deal with that, David? So being a player who plays a lot of volume, does the volume sort of mask those horrible runouts, or does it hurt sort of more because ultimately you're going to go deep in more tourneys and therefore, you know, horrible runouts can cost you serious money? How do you deal with it?
The run out. I suppose what I'm happy about is both in that Queen's hand from 5 hands ago and the Jack's hand there. I found a way not to go broke in either hand, which I think it could have been the case that a lot of people might have gone broke in either of those 2 hands. So the fact that I'm still in the tournament is the is the thing I console myself with right now. But also just that I probably played both hands pretty much correctly. I don't think I did anything too egregious. And still have every chance, obviously, here with 20 bigs, or not quite 20 bigs anymore, but some bigs.
So given that
but coming back to your question, sorry, I appreciate you're about to come across with another one. With poker having gone into this kind of content creation model, there was an emphasis then on sort of singing for your supper, if you like. So Dara O'Carney and I, who'd been signed by Unibet in 2017, we wanted to bring back the chip race, which you mentioned there in the intro, the podcast. And then similarly, when it came to a sort of a pandemic world early last year, we figured, well, we're probably going to provide a little less value to Unibet now, not being a physical presence at their live events. You know, we would have attended maybe 10 or 11 live events for Unibet, regional ones in the UK and their European tour, and we've even gone abroad to Vegas with them and different things like that. So we recognize that we wouldn't be providing that value to them, and it might be nice to figure out another way to give them value. Hence our segue into that lock-in show that you alluded to again in the intro, where we have a kind of a cameras on, almost opinion pundit show that we put out fortnightly as well. So that became our kind of focus, and I suppose you're right. We've just kind of signed on with Unibet for a 5th year. So I guess we're doing something right via them. I guess they're happy enough with how things are going, and delighted obviously that Dara and Ian Simpson are there in the team as well. It's been all of us together since the start. So it's good to have good friends and people you trust, in the team as well. We do try to collaborate and synergize whenever possible.
Oh no, it makes perfect sense. And tell me, David, do the Unibet marketing team, do they feed into your content creation, either at with top level ideas or at macro level in terms of some of the stuff that you're trying to direct your narrative, or what involvement do they have, or do they just leave you guys to get on and do your thing?
They're quite hands off when it comes to the content creation stuff that they've sort of pre-approved. So when it comes to the shows, so you got the Lappin, the chip race, we also make some strategy videos. They just trust us to go off and make them. I appreciate that occasionally, and it has happened, not very often, but it has happened that we've caused a bit of controversy. That sometimes led to an email or a phone call or whatever, where maybe there was a disgruntled party, shall we say. And that's just kind of par for the course. And Unibet have always had our backs on that stuff, where they sort of feel like, well, if you want to call us journalists within the context of this, I don't know if that's really proper, but like, let's just say there's a sort of a pseudo journalistic integrity that we always sort of make our North Star and guide us. We sort of think that if things are in the public domain and they're fair to give out about, and they're fair to talk about, maybe it's someone's poor behavior, maybe it's whatever it happens to be, we generally don't shy away from that stuff. So they trust us on that stuff, and actually have had our back when it came to one or two dicey moments where there were people a little upset maybe with us, but that's great. Like, that's what you want. They leave us be, they let us make our content. When we need them, they have our backs, and then also they're very good sounding boards. We're sort of consiglieres or consultants to them in a lot of ways. We'll talk to them about scheduling, we'll talk to them about promotional stuff, and that stuff does work its way in. Here I am playing on Unibet 4 years after I signed with them, and in the very first year I did sign with them, the space theme was an idea I pitched to them very strongly. I thought we were lacking something in the way that our schedule and our lobby was delivered. We didn't have a theme, and I thought that was a little unexciting, maybe, to have just all your tournaments be called the 4K deep stack rebuy or whatever it was. I thought you need to just zhuzh it up a little bit, and space kind of made sense with our existing avatars and our existing sort of backdrops. And there it is, still there. Some might say it could do with a revamp. That's probably a reasonable argument at this point. Maybe we'll look to retheme it at some point. But it's little things like that we see in the client. It's suggestions we make that make their way into the actual everyday playing thing for people. And I think that's obviously great to see. You feel like your opinion counts.
Yeah, and that is fantastic. And I guess Unibet, they weren't alone in this, but they did it in quite a big and interesting way. They weren't the first online operator to invest in live poker, but they really went for it. And I think they found a really nice sweet spot internationally, sort of somewhere below the EPTs, but above your national level tours with Unibet Open. Were you guys involved in the sort of thinking around that? And do you think, is that something that will continue to evolve as we start to get back to normal?
I don't think we could take much credit for the way live poker is, because the Unibet Open Tour, which is the sort of flagship tour, it's the 1K tour with the 2K high roller and the 500 and 300 side events, that preceded us, and that sort of actually was a part of Unibet's offering when they were part of a network structure before they went out alone 5 years ago at Relax. So Natalie Sobaku Peru in Unibet has been sort of at the helm of the live events. I'm not sure we could take any credit for that kind of stuff. I would hope that we have enhanced and augmented the experience at live events by our presence and maybe small suggestions along the way. But no, I wouldn't be keen to take much, if any, credit for that stuff. I think it's a fantastic tour. It's one of the things that we spotted first before I ever played on Unibet as a client. I had played Unibet Opens. That was something, as you say, sort of fit in nicely with the kind of stake level that I played at. I would have been playing some EPTs, but I would have been selective. I would have been playing maybe 3 EPTs a year around that time. But I wouldn't have played the whole EPT schedule of whatever 8 events or whatever it was. So looking for those 1K festivals and those 2K kind of stuff was like perfect. And I did attend quite a few Unibet Opens around then.
I guess that the smart thing that Unibet did is, although they were providing a 1K main event, you always had the feeling that those festivals were very aspirational. So they felt like a bigger event. They were big stages. There was live streaming. There were it felt like they were ahead of the game in terms of doing those things well, versus a lot of the other tours that were out there. Stars maybe aside, but then Stars invested extremely heavily in the space. But I've always found that when you come face to face with your customers, and it's particularly important if you're an ambassador, because some of their customers will talk to you. It's a great place for feedback. Do they listen, Unibet?
Yeah, I think they listen a lot. There's actually a kind of a community atmosphere there. There's a forum, and the community sort of posts to the forum and actually have a big say in the choice of tournaments that we maybe put on. A lot of that is I wouldn't say outsourced to them, because obviously we have people whose jobs it is to put that stuff together, but they do listen to the feedback all the time, and they're very responsive. Leo Agnes is our tournament manager, and he listens to the different people when putting his schedule together. We're very lucky to have a guy called Andy Payton in the team now, who's very, very knowledgeable, plays on all the sites himself, is a poker player, and he's now the third line product manager, which is essentially like the head honcho of customer support, and he involves himself in a lot of the bigger decisions there too. So and actually Andy particularly has great taste, and I could see him having a big career in poker, to be honest, because he really knows his stuff. These are the kind of people we have, and they are constantly absorbing the opinions of our community. I would also say that when you mentioned there the sort of unique selling points maybe of the Unibet Open, I think you're right that there's a lot of qualifiers. We qualify a lot of people to those events. So there is a real sense of like a lot of the people who get there, one, get to play against people they play on the site all the time and maybe are part of the community, which is really nice for them. It's kind of becomes a holiday atmosphere for those guys. And some of them obviously make the money and go deep and have nice touches, which is great. But there's also a kind of a sense of, when they go to these events, they're sort of no expense spared. Like if you win a 2K package on Unibet, which is the package when it's at a live stop. Like I know for a fact that those packages are worth about $2,400. The events team are well aware of how much each individual coming to the event costs, because they put on so much extra stuff. So they're great value from that point of view too. But it is seen as a way to treat and look after the customers well, which I think is appreciated.
Oh yeah, it makes perfect sense. Any sense of when it's going to return, David? I mean, or have they come back in sort of Central Europe yet?
They basically made a decision that it won't be 2021. Beyond that, we don't know yet. I do hear rumblings that we're gearing up, fingers crossed. Obviously, it's a constantly moving situation with COVID, but I think we're gearing up for maybe something around February 2022. I'd be optimistic for that. I'd be optimistic maybe for a partnership between now and Christmas as well. Maybe we will partner up with somebody who is running a live event in the autumn or in the winter. That might be nice as well. That might be a nice way to ease ourselves back into it. I obviously make none of those decisions, but that's something I know is maybe a possibility or an option, and it would be a cool one to take if it's safe to do so. I think safety is the only thing that matters really for everyone in the team, and there is no way we will be doing anything unless we can kind of guarantee a really, really safe space for our players. We were the first company to announce the withdrawal from live poker in 2020. We made that really clear early on. We were the first to withdraw from poker in 2021. Some might say we were a bit maybe jumping the gun there, and that possibly the world will look a bit different come November, December. But I have to say I really like the fact that we made it very clear and obvious, and everyone knew where they stood. And in the meantime, the Unibet Open Onlines have been a great success. So we'll continue with those, and hopefully they'll continue to be a big success.
Absolutely.
I think that's sensible because I mean things are still moving ridiculous. I mean, if you'd have said to me a month ago I was making plans for Vegas in the autumn and it was all going to be great, and now I'm going, oh, maybe not.
Oh, no.
I don't know, what's going to happen here. What's going on? Because where you're based, David, Malta, there's obviously some amazing festivals in the autumn time that are put on. Battle of Malta, Malta Poker Festival, and we know we work closely with Yvonne there, and she's desperate to get as she puts it, a beautiful tournament and festival back on. It'll be beautiful. So and obviously that'd be fantastic if we can do that. And Malta's obviously, I mean, what's it been like living there through the last 18 months?
I think we've been very lucky overall. Some might say living on a very small island. I know some people who live in the Isle of Man. They're probably very similar sized islands. You might feel like people might go stir crazy, and I guess that's possible. But like essentially everyone has been confined to the 10 square miles or whatever it is that they live. So whether you live in a thriving metropolis where you have all these other options, those options don't exist right now. So I think having the weather, having the I suppose the lifestyle of Malta, which is very laid back and easy going, has been good. It's obviously been tough for everybody. There has certainly been times where I was pulling my hair out and just dying to get on a plane and see family back in Ireland. Love to go to a poker event if I could, but it is what it is. And I think there are far worse places. Also with the good weather, I think we've had a natural ally against COVID there. I think, the better the weather, the less COVID tends to be an issue. We've had a couple of spikes, we've had a couple of lockdowns, but nothing like the lockdowns that were in the UK or Ireland. We've been much more lenient. We reopened restaurants much sooner. I actually played a poker tournament 2 weeks ago in Portomasso Casino, and it was a great success for the organizer and for everyone involved. And it was really safe. At the time, there were 30 cases on Malta. That's total. There was about one being added every day. So you were feeling like, wow, we've really dampened it down. And Malta has one of the highest vaccination rates in all of Europe. So it feels like we're in a very good place right now, to be honest.
Oh, that's good.
You know it must be good when you're back on the UK. You're on the UK's green list, so I mean, you're living in a safe place if you've made that list. So
yeah, more like you're on Malta's green list. The UK is more to the point. More to the point. It seems to be getting just a tiny bit nervy over here again. Albeit I have to say I'm ready to go. And that seems to be the message from a lot of poker players. Cautious, certainly, want to do it correctly, most definitely, but can't wait to get back to live poker. Is that where you are? I mean, you've obviously broken the ice going to to play locally, but are you quite looking forward to playing live, or do you see yourself traditionally, David, as an online player, and that's where you're most comfortable?
No, I actually think I did do a full segue across to being as much live as I am online over the last few years. I suppose I had already started playing quite a lot of live poker mixed in with the online, maybe from 2012 to 2016. And my partnership with Unibet has only accentuated that, really. Maybe 10 or 11 Unibet events, maybe another 10 events from other operators, obviously going to the World Series. And I think, I definitely became as much a live player as I was an online player. And I would love to play some more online poker, or some more live poker, I should say. Not that I don't love playing online, I do, but I do love a mixture. I think, if you can get the right balance, it's always nice. Yeah. And then a mixture for me is probably 2 weeks online, a week away, something like that is always kind of the sweet spot.
That makes sense. And with the World Series of Poker coming up with quite a big schedule, I mean, they're obviously super confident that they're going to get away safely. Is that something that you've cheekily marked into your diary, or is it still a bit early for that?
It's certainly in the diary penciled in. You mentioned a couple of events that could be here in Malta around that Yvonne's event, the Malta Poker Festival. The Battle of Malta is usually here as well. And then there's the Poker One event, which is I think it's a Stanley Bet Italian skin tournament that comes here every year. And it's usually amazing, to be honest. So those three events are all scheduled for around that same October period. It's probably when the preliminary events of the World Series are on. It's probably in that month where all the 1500s and stuff are going on. And then we don't know, to be perfectly honest. None of them have actually been confirmed here. But if one was to clash with the main event, it would be kind of awkward, because to have a good festival here on my doorstep, or to travel with all the risk involved, and everything else. I just feel like maybe I would take the boxy route and just be happy that there was 10 days of good poker outside the door.
David, no. Now listen to me okay? Tomorrow morning, what I want you to do is I want you to go in and sit down with Kat, okay? And say, look, Kat, I'm planning a big schedule in Vegas, right? I need 50 events, right? Here's where the buy-ins come to. I need to get away on September the 25th, okay? I'll be back in late December unless I win, in which case, at some point in 22. That's what you should do, David. Go for it. Because we're all sat here jealousy. There's jealousy in play. Leigh, you were going to go last week. You were going, and now you're not so sure.
I was just going to say, so yeah, I mean, Pete Wigglesworth's in the chat, says lot respect for Ian Dara and David. I met up at the Win in Las Vegas a few years ago, and Pete's already got his flights booked. He said, hopefully I might see the Unibet ambassadors in Vegas in October. So yeah, I think it's the same though. It's a case of, I say, if you'd have said to me a couple of weeks ago, I've been keeping an eye on flights, thinking this is all going to happen, and then all of a sudden there's Delta variants come out, and you're now questioning, and all of a sudden you're seeing other countries saying we're not letting you in if you're from the UK, and you're thinking, well, okay, you can fly to America at the moment, but that's nothing to say that's not going to change. But it feels like it's going to be a big World Series. It really has that feel that Vegas is open. And there's a real buzz for people getting back and playing. So you look at all the tweets and stuff from people that are out in Vegas at the moment. I follow, the likes of Spraggy and stuff, and he's over there at the moment, and they're playing. And there's a big 10K buy-in at the is it the Win? I think at the moment 10 million.
Yeah, the 10K 10 million's on the Win. I'm going to be all in here, guys, in the Supernova.
Go for it, David. Good luck.
Good luck.
8 bigs here, so definitely we'll get called by a fairly wide range. You would think. There it is. Okay,
we're flipping. Go.
Not
Ace,
good so
Queen.
Far. We got there. It was a struggle. It was a real struggle.
Oh, you deserve that one, in fairness. Leigh, have you mentioned to David about our Bocking standard here on the APAT Show?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Are you unlucky? I heard you were lucky. That's why I.
Oh no. We destroy people. Destroy them.
It might just be when they're playing on Party. Maybe when they're playing on another site, it's fine. It's not a problem then. Yeah, it's only But we're very rarely does a guest manage about more than 10 minutes of poker playing when they come on the show normally. But
that's great. Thanks for telling me now.
Tell me, David, what's your normal?
I was just going to say, let me just get a couple of quick other shout outs to other people in the chat. Tony Ross is there. He says hi. And Gordon MacArthur also says evening all as well. So.
Very, very good. Tell me, David, what's your normal split vodka and water in that bottle?
Oh, don't be giving me away here. Sorry, I'm just trying to get a better light going for you. There we go. That's a bit better.
There we go.
I was conscious I was in the dark there for the last few minutes because my fancy light went off.
I saw. Hey, we've all had our tech problems.
I was going to say, for those that have watched episodes of The Orbit, they'll know we call that doing a Barry Carter, is what we call that. It gets darker and darker as the show goes on.
It was quite funny because I think his eyes had fully adjusted, so he lost sight of the fact that he was in a completely dark place. It looks like the search for Bin Laden.
We had an episode of The Lock-In, I want to say, about 3 months ago, where we probably fired off our most vicious shots. And Dara pointed out that in the hour of the show, I just got darker, almost to the point that I was in one of those witness protection programs. And Dara was like, oh, that's nice. By the time we get to the end of the show, we're really firing off shots, attacking fellow poker pros. David's in the dark and is completely unidentifiable.
All you need is a voice sort of synthesizer at the end, so you sound different. Fantastic. Oh, that's brilliant.
So just to give you okay, so so obviously I'm still in the Supernova here. I think I'm 26 of 31. We're approaching the bubble. I think 26 will be paid. So I'm sitting right on the just squeaking home seat right now. I'm also in the Neptune rebuy 11 of 16. That's on Unibet as well. Maybe more interestingly, just because of what is possibly up top in it, I'm in the Hotter 109 too, and that one is approaching final table. So fingers crossed, that could be the one that over the next hour might make me very happy. The other ones,
what's up top on that one? No, I never like asking.
I haven't even looked, to be honest.
How do you work with these things? Are you superstitious? Do you just not look at the payout? At what point will you start looking at what's available?
No, I will. No, I do. I do take a glance at like the payout ladders, because if I'm close to a ladder and I think a 10-second time ban could get me an extra $20, I'm not too cheap to do that, to be honest. It's definitely something that is in my arsenal. But I will say that I hadn't looked at the final table payouts, and it looks like it's 6.5 up top. So that's okay. We'll take that.
That'll do. Listen, our one of our shortest ever interviews was with Andy Black. It's pretty legendary around these parts. We'd organised Andy, and of course we had we must have had 100 members, a couple of hundred members maybe on. They all wanted to hear Andy talk. So Andy, we dialed him in, and the first thing he said was, "I'm in a couple of scoops at the moment." We said, "Oh, is it a problem? I mean, we can call you back. We can organise again." No. We'll carry on. So I said, "No, are you sure, Andy?" Well, he said, "Maybe, might be better." So I said, "Andy, we're on 20%. You go away and play your scoops." So he sent me a message at 3 a.m. 70 grand, just won. Fantastic. Yeah. We're still trying to collect that 20%, aren't we, Lee? We didn't quite get that.
Yeah, we are.
We never closed on that.
Haven't got it back on the show since, actually. We're his lucky show. So
yeah, I am conscious though, David, that obviously if you're playing a lot of tourneys, we distract like hell. Lee, that's probably why we bonk a lot of people. We just distract them.
That could well be the case, I reckon. So I'm curious to know, David, when you're playing a lot, obviously you play regularly on Unibet, obviously so does Ian, so does Dara.
Mm-hmm.
When you see one of them crop up on one of your tables, you must know their games very well. And obviously you talk a lot of strategy as well in a lot of the content that you put out. So does that make it easier or more difficult having them on your table?
Well, firstly, I know Dara's game very well. But that doesn't make it easier to play because he's just very fucking good. So that, just when somebody's just going to like make good decisions all the time, it's not a great read. It's not a great tendency. But to know about it. But when it comes to Ian is quite. He has a kind of a schizophrenic sort of approach. So Ian can play really solid and Ian can play really wild. So you kind of don't know which Ian you're getting. I'm all in the hotter 109 here with Jacks. And we're up against Ace King.
Hold.
We're holding to the turn. We've held to the river. Okay, so we're in very good mix now. So I think we're probably going to go final table. No, we're not. We're 7 of 10, and there's a guy with one big blind. So we will probably be just waiting our time here. We've got two guys much shorter, so I probably can't do anything too funky here. They are all in now, so we might be about to go final table again. No, Shorty holds, so we're still moving along there. But anyway, that's at least a fun final table. But I won't ask you to put that one on screen because my sponsor will be very unhappy with me.
Oh, okay, yeah, say no more.
I will let you know how it is.
Listen,
you could just lie and say I won it then, couldn't I? I could just pretend that I'm whoever wins.
You do it. Do what you've got to do, right? Do what you've got to do. I want to talk about you and Dara. You and Dara, it's like you're just watching you over the last year and a half. As with each new episode, your hair gets slightly longer. Love the style of your shows. Very direct. It's absolutely fantastic. You guys don't care about the hair, right? And to be honest, Lee and I have been a bit like that too. No issues. Although we have shaved tonight, which is unusual in itself. But you and Dara, I need to know, do you think, does he love you more than he does Mrs. Doak?
No, definitely
really
not. Have you do you know Mrs. Doak?
No, not at all. I've just heard the legend of Mrs. Doak.
I think I love Mrs. Doak more than I love Dara. Mrs. Doak is the legend. No,
fantastic.
There's no question there. No, look, I think Dara and I have a great working relationship. I think we have a great friendship.
Definitely. Yeah.
And it's lovely to be able to go to work with your friend. I think that's just like the ultimate. and we collaborate. And I look forward to, I suppose we probably record about 3 things a week on average. So that might all be like across 2 days, or it might be 1 a day across 3, or whatever it is. But we have a lovely couple of hours each time. We do a bit of prep together to make sure we're ready for the game tree of where the conversation might go with guests. And we do a little kind of after chat as well of how we might edit the thing. And yeah, look, it's great to be able to work with somebody that you enjoy their company. When I go play live poker, I room with Dara by choice. He's my first person to go to. I'm actually going to be all in it. This is a really grim spot. Okay, I think I have to. No, I have to go for it here. The big stack is just trying to pummel us. Oh, I'm going to lose. I need help. I'm dead. I do manage to come 8th, I think. But the big stack just lamped in ace-6 into the field where we're all sitting with like 15 bigs. I had pocket 10s.
Taking that.
Were you up against a king something as well, weren't you? I just got the table up, so
the king jack was the short stack, and he jumped in as well. So I can't fold that spot, because if I can win with the 10s there, and I know the guy is shoving fairly wide in that spot. If I can win with the 10s there, it's actually a really, really cool spot to get myself maybe top 3 in this. I don't know. I don't think, no, it would have been crazy to just try and like fold 10s in that spot and it would have been worth a ladder or 2. But really, if I double up there, I get to be like almost second in chips, and it's a great spot.
Yeah, you've got to go.
Yeah, so David finished 9th of 347 runners there for just over $500. And as he says, I think you're right. I mean, third place was 3,500, 6,500 up top. I think it's the right decision to make there.
And you have to put it. Do you know what it is as well? Like when you have the big stack, and he's doing the right thing. He picked up a suited ace, and he's like looking at guys with 15 bigs, and they're all trying to ladder past each other. He's obviously supposed to shove that and take his 30% equity against pretty much all the calls that might, come about. And he's going to get more folds than he should do because of the ICM pressure. You have to, in the end of the day, punish that when you do wake up with legitimate premiums and, exploit the fact that he is so wide. Like he might have had 7-8 suited, in which case my 10s were in amazing shape. And even so, 70% is just so much.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost impossible as well. He's capped himself. He's probably going to min raise anything that's better than my hand. So it's not like, or even anything that might be flipping against my hand might min raise as well. So you sort of know you're going to be 70% at, in a worst case scenario, and maybe could be even closer to 80 in some. So I think, all that adding up together, while I'm supposed to make bigger folds than I would normally, I think 10s is just too big, and I think you have to punish the big stack, and try and get those chips in that spot. But anyway, it didn't work out.
So we've just talked about that one hand there for about just over a minute, about that simple. So you're having to make those decisions when you're multi-tabling split second. Is that just a thing which comes with experience for you, and you've been in that spot so many times, or do you try and give yourself breathing time to work it through?
No, that one I don't think was close. I think if I'm looking at 8s, I'm probably finding a fold. I think 9s is the hand that's going to give me the most trouble. I don't think I can fold 10s in that spot. It's just too strong a hand in a spot that's just too clearly going to put me into a very good spot. Maybe 2 of 3 of going to the final table. If I turn it down, okay, yes, I'm going to make the final table like 8 of 9 or maybe even 7 of 9. That's going to be a struggle because that's automatically you're in laddering mode. So it's sort of an opportunity to change the complexion of my final table. I can now be on a final table that I can win, as opposed to one where I'm going to get pummeled and probably be fighting it out for the bottom 5 places. And end of the day, the ladders are relatively small. I think I got 550. Next jump was 700. Next jump was 9 something. So it's worth taking my chance there. To be in a spot where I can compete for the sort of the top 4 spots, which I think were $2,500 up to maybe 6.5. But to answer your question about how quickly, it's just it's pretty automatic. Like it's not that we don't make mistakes. We all sort of make mistakes from time to time, and maybe we run that in an ICM calculator and we'll find that I'm allowed call with jacks and 10s is actually a fold. I'd be very surprised. although ICM can create some fairly extreme spots. My instinct is nines is the problem hand. And also, it wasn't a small factor that the shortest stack was in there with his four bigs. To give him a chance to double up through a light range shoved by the big stack there is actually really bad for me too, because if he doubles up now because he happens to have a better range in general, which he will do, than the big stack, he then doubles to basically have my stack, and then I have another person that I'm sort of in that, you know, race to the bottom with. Whereas tens stands to be miles ahead of his range, and now I have a great opportunity to put him out as well. I think that just makes it way too compelling.
Wow.
Will you go back and review particular hands in your session? Are you that type of player that will go back and work things back through, as you say, with the calculators and the solvers and that kind of thing, or is that something you steer clear?
Yeah, no, I automatically tagged that one. The moment it happened, I didn't let the table go away, and I tagged the hand. It's definitely one that I'll run because I'd be interested. Again, we sort of are guided by these, I guess they're like guideposts that we create in our heads, these heuristics that we create as being, you know, I think X is the right thing to do in this spot. I think this hand is the line. And these kind of hands, these kind of decisions that this is the line comes from the fact that, you know, I've been in those situations so many times before. I've run similar-ish spots. Obviously, every spot is unique. I don't know exactly, you know, that spot, whatever it was, like 14 bigs, tens, with a guy, you know, putting in his last 4 and a bit bigs. That specific spot is not something I'm 100% familiar with, but I do have these guideposts in my mind, which tell me that probably nines is the cutoff. Tens has to be a call. And if I'm wrong and I run it now and I find out that tens is actually the line, well, now I have a new good line. If I find out that jacks was the line, well, now I realize that I've actually maybe had a very poor guidepost for that kind of spot in my mind, and maybe we'll have to make some sort of tightening readjustments to my ranges going forward. But again, I've been in these situations a lot. My instinct is that that wasn't too close.
Okay. Yeah.
And does that describe your game in a nutshell there, David? Because, you know, we tend to break our players down, i.e. players that come on, guests that come on and what have you. And we tend to ask them, look, are you a data-orientated player? Are you a scientist, or are you a feel sort of player? You know, is it about instinct? And some will say, look, I'm instinctive. I'm not that into the numbers. I mean, I understand the basics. And some will say, no, I'm absolutely guided by the numbers. Where would you say you are on that scale?
I suppose my game began in a very kind of strong fundamentals kind of place. So when I got into poker in the first place, I was very much a sort of sit and go player. And as a sit and go player, you have automatic ICM, you know, almost from the very beginning of the tournament, you know, from you know, ball one, really, there's some ICM at play, whether it's a 9-man where 3 were paid, whether it was a 6-man where 2 were paid. So I became familiar with some good ICM fundamentals quite early on. I got very good at short stack play quite early on, again, because, you know, most of the sit and goes kind of end up in a 10 big blind type of game. So you end up good at the sort of shorter stacks. That became a kind of a learning Nash equilibrium by rote. Obviously, all those hands appear at the back of Kill Everyone, but those ranges were not known by most. And, you know, Dara and I, and actually our good friend Dara Davey, we were real disciples of just like making sure your short stack fundamentals were there, because obviously in tournament poker, you end up playing shorter stacks so often that if you're leaking equity there, it's a disaster. Also, like if you make a 1 big blind mistake when you have 15 bigs late on in the tournament, that's an enormous mistake. That's much worse than a 10 big blind mistake when you're 200 deep in the first hand. So this is where you could just give away way too much EV. So I became very good at that stuff. My fundamentals, my ranges, you know, became fairly nailed on early on. And then obviously as the game has evolved and we've, you know, incorporated solvers in the last 4 or 5 years, or maybe even slightly longer, it's taken on that next level again, where now it's all about understanding the value of blockers, understanding the value of, you know, just much smaller bet sizes, much larger bet sizes. You know, like most of the time in the game that I came up in, you didn't overbet very often, and you didn't really go much less than a third pot very often. Now we are seeing a lot of 20% bets. We're seeing a lot of 200% bets on different board textures, and understanding range advantages much more clearly, and understanding boards where you can dunk lead much more clearly. All of this stuff has really been solver induced, if you like, by our experience now of working with solvers. For me, working with something like DTO, which is just an amazing piece of kit. That's how I both do some of my ICM study these days, and just generally plug leaks and work my spots. I obviously go over hands with Dara, so there's a bit of old school anecdotal talking through hands. Particularly when we were playing live, there would have been a lot of that. But no, like I that dichotomy between math and feel based, I'm not sure how much I buy into it really. Like I kind of feel like, okay, yeah, there are people who are not math based, but that's not to say that I don't trust my gut or don't trust my read in certain situations. But my gut and my read is obviously informed by all of that knowledge that I have now. So it's hard to parse, I suppose.
What appears absolutely without question is that, particularly online, it's critical that you have a good grasp of the fundamentals to succeed in the game. What would you recommend for either a beginner or indeed a player who's got the majority of those fundamentals off, but they're aspiring to move up in levels, so they can't afford to make as many mistakes? What do you think is the route to learning the game in the way that you described? Because what you described is pretty overwhelming if you're relatively new in this game.
One thing I don't think is done by enough people these days is the sort of graduation that I went through in the early days. Sit and goes are kind of dead because the spin and goes sort of took them over. So the sit and go lobbies don't fill up their games as easily anymore. And sit and goes were a really big part of the poker landscape when I started out. The ICM lessons you get from playing sit and goes are really valuable and really important. The short stack fundamentals that you end up having to really have hammered into your brain is really important. And just that final table experience, because they're an automatic final table, or even if you play 45 mans or 18 mans or whatever it is, it's so important to get the final table experience and then almost move out from that to the MTTs. I think a lot of people these days hop into 1,000 runner fields. And if they do that every weekend for, their 6 games they play on a Sunday once a week, okay, maybe a couple of times a year they're going to make a final table. But when they do, it's going to feel really precious and really scary and really daunting because everything is, every mistake they could make could fuck their year or make their year. Whereas if you've come from a place where you're just getting to play loads of final tables, getting to play loads of tournaments and endgame and ICM and last 2 tables and all of that, you just become much more, familiar with the spots, much more confident in your decision making, much less precious when you get there in a key spot, maybe where it is a big MTT. Suddenly you're okay, I've been in a lot of MTT final tables recently because I've been playing my 90-man, 100-runner fields or whatever it is. So now I'm in this 10,000-runner field once a year sort of final table that I might make. Well, now, you're much more composed, and that probably gives you a big edge over the other players. I don't think people do enough of that. I think people way too more inclined these days to jump into huge field MTTs and almost never get any final table experience because of that.
So you're saying earn it, basically, earn it, take your time. Some, good feedback here from Mr. Wigglesworth, a very interesting insight into decision-making in terms of money ladders. Pete goes on to say, I'll be playing my first poker next weekend at the Hippodrome, and then in a few weeks at the Vic and the GUKPT Mini Omaha and Seniors. He's very glad to hear your insight, your thought process in prep to going back to live poker. And your mate Andy is in the chat box as well, and I'm going to butcher his surname here, but he says, thanks for finally pronouncing my last name properly, Lappin. It could be Andy Payton or it could be Patton.
I used to say Patton and I got told I was wrong.
Payton.
So I've been getting it right more recently. That's good.
That's right. Fantastic. So
that's what you want. So just for those that might be just tuning in, we're watching David playing day one of the Supernova over on Unibet today. It's their regular weekly 2-day event, €20,000 guarantee in. That's it, €100 buy-in. Am I right? 90 plus 10, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, €100 buy-in. Big overlay on it this week. It's been overlay for the last couple of weeks, so it's it's well worth the spin. And right now you're watching me try to, cockroach into the money.
Well, yeah, I was about to say it's paying top 26, and there's 28 players left, and you're currently 26th of 28, aren't you? So it's that's what is technically known as clinging on for dear life, isn't it?
Yeah, I really am. I'm like, gosh.
What are you down to? You're down to about nine bigs now.
I think I have exactly 9 bigs. Yeah, things were looking good when the call started. I think I had about 40 bigs, and then our queens got done by a jack 9 in the big blind, and then our jack somehow lost on an ace jack 4 board or whatever it was. But we got 4 flushed in the end in that one. But look, it is what it is. We'll now try and cockroach into the money and get a spin going after.
Let's see what we can do. Let me give you a quick update on the APAT events. Just
go for it.
We're 3 left in the main event tonight. So Kevin Kelso from Canada is chip leader in that. Mark Lathwell from the UK and Danny Walsh from the UK are the other 2 in the 3 remaining in that. With 3 left in the PLO as well. It's another Canadian leading that one at the moment, Kevin Negley, with Patrick Coulter and Tony Ross, both from the UK, again chasing him down. And we are 4 left in the Turbo Knockout. I mentioned when I first talked about this about an hour ago that Tom Bacon was chip leader in that. He is still chip leader with only 4 players remaining in that.
Decent player.
Dave Amos is chasing him down. Igor Asimov from Germany as well is in the mix, and one of our friends from Kazakhstan. Get
I'll have to get that Mankini out again, Lee.
Ready for the national anthem, Des. If we're heading
no pressure. I'm going to have to lose a few pounds, Lee. I'm telling you. Going to have to lose a few pounds.
We had a little bet on during our World Championships of online of amateur poker online earlier on in the year, because we did the national anthems for whoever won the championship the night the night before, and Des did say if we got a Kazakhstan winner, he would stand there with his Mankini as the national anthem was thrown out, but we never got there in the end.
Well, listen, the story gets a bit scary though, because we did have a Kazakhstani player who's actually come back and played multiple events since get down to the last 3, so he got a medal, and he put a post on the forum or within the Facebook group the following day to say, "So sad I didn't win. Was looking forward to the Mankini national anthem celebration." What? He heard us? Really?
Yeah, we
can't say anything online.
Yes,
you cannot say anything. Listen, I some opinions, right? I want to ask David about this because I know I'll get a good opinion. What the fuck is going on there? He's gone for it.
I said on Twitter that it was a bit. Now you might get this reference and you might not, Lee. It's a bit like getting your hole at Wesley when you're 14 on the discount. It had a bit of that vibe, didn't it?
I don't know whether you've seen the meme with him and the scene from The Inbetweeners, but it's a perfect, just like
guys. I think I'm going to live dangerously here. What do you think?
Yeah,
I think I have to live
dangerously.
Go for it.
This hand is going to be the theme of the night.
Okay, he's gone all
Here
in.
we go. Here we go.
It's a race for the big stack on the button.
Race from Soup, please, here, because he's opening 100% and he knows I have to have a proper hand. Okay, he does let go. I had 10s again. I had 10s again, lads.
but David, out of curiosity there, so Soup, please, he's made the raise there. What was it? About another 15,000 to make the call from a stack of 125,000. I mean, there's players which would very much go, well, I'm the big stacks here that would say, I'm committed to this now. I've got a call with any 2 and justify themselves into it. But actually, that's quite a disciplined fold there, yeah?
Yeah, I think your game should be set up in that spot from his point of view with the chip lead, or at least, the chip lead of the remaining players once it's folded by not the mama, is that he should open 100%. So as someone who opens 100%, and then opens into a person who's like cockroaching into the money. I'm really like not like maybe tens I'm supposed to let go there. Like I'm really close to the bottom of like, you know, I'm handcuffed. He's got the kinky handcuffs out. I'm tied to the bed. It's not a situation that I'm really comfortable with. So my only hope really is to, you know, raise my tens, sort of it being the bottom of my range, but I'm probably going to have like queens and kings and aces a lot when I am willing to stick it in here on the bubble. And so he can open anything. He can open 2-3 and then just go, well, if the guy shoves, I'll let go because it's no big deal.
Now, does the fact that the name Lappin is there make any difference to his decision to fold that at all? The fact that you've repop that, or just doesn't come into the equation?
Do you know what? That might be the one situation where it's to my advantage, because sometimes you get these spots in poker. You get them in satellites quite a bit. High ICM situations quite a bit are the most common. So bubble, high ICM, satellite, you know, late stages, high ICM. The reason being is that like it's almost good that he knew I'm competent because I'm supposed to have real hands. Whereas, you know, if I'm just a button clicker, maybe I'm just doing something wild there with like ace-9, and he's in there with his, I don't know, maybe his jack-10, and he knows a jack-10 shouldn't call, but against ace-9 and getting that price, you probably want to get it in with jack-10 now. So it's it's an interesting one. Maybe it's to my advantage to be known as an actual player, because my range is meant to be really tight now. But I really like the idea of him, you know, constructing even a raise fold range against my 7 big blinds, let alone 8 and a bit. I think that's probably completely fine. Maybe even less. Maybe he can even find raise folds against my 6 big blinds there, if he's going to go any 2.
Yeah. Now, you used to do some streaming. I don't think you do much necessarily now, because Ian does a lot of the streaming on Unibet. But do you find that made a difference to how people played against you, because they're seeing a lot more of your hands and hold cards, and obviously on a delay, but they can sit and watch and learn your game for a few hours quite easily.
Yeah, no, great point. I was never comfortable with that aspect. I kind of didn't like that was part of the giveaway. Was, you know, my tendencies. I'm sure there are people out there who spotted leaks of mine, didn't tell me, and used them against me at some point. So you were automatically giving away information that you would benefit from not doing. Ian is obviously streaming for the last 4 years. You know, he's definitely hurt his own ROI by doing that. But then, you know, it's a trade-off between
swings and roundabouts, right?
Creating some entertainment for his beloved fans, creating some content for Unibet. He's obviously sponsored by the site, so you know there's kickbacks in other ways, and it was the same for me in that 1 year that I streamed. But I was very keen to get away from streaming if I could. I have a huge amount of respect for all the streamers. I think they're phenomenal. I'm very close friends with some of the absolute tippy top streamers in the poker space, and I think they are some of the hardest working people in our industry, frankly. But I couldn't do it. I didn't want to. I both couldn't really do it anymore. Didn't want to do it anymore. And really, really wanted the chip race to work out, because I wanted to have my content be in that sort of edited space and be in that sort of, I suppose, with a greater emphasis on both pre-production and post-production, because I liked the finish. I liked the polished finish of those shows. I suppose Darren and I are letting it hang out a bit more with the lock-in. But at the same time, that's a kind of a different kind of show. That's, you know, there's less variables there. When we interview 4 different guests on the show, and the interviews could go lots of different ways, and we prep all the interviews, you know, hours and hours go into the prep, hours go into the actual recording, and then I probably spend about 8 to 10 hours editing every single show. So that ends up being a sort of labor of love to create a really nice finish and a nice polished, you know, product at the end. When it comes to the lock-in, we sort of feel more like it's a studio, and we're talking heads, and we're pundits, and we're giving our views on things.
That makes perfect sense. I was feeling a little bit bad about the APAT show there for a minute, Leigh, because we don't put in all of those hours of prep, do we?
Oh well, we tell everyone we don't. Yeah,
we just switch it on, and sometimes it works, and like tonight it didn't.
So how do you find your balance of your working week goes now, Dave? What proportion is playing poker, and what proportion is the content and the writing? I'm assuming you get as much enjoyment out of both still. which is the reason why you have the balance in your life that you do.
Yeah, I do. I was a writer beforehand, so I definitely got the writing bug back this year, and that's why I took on a little bit of extra work, writing a column for one of the big affiliate sites. And then, obviously continuing to make the content for Unibet, I still like the chip race is always number one for me. That's the thing that I it's the first work that I kind of look at every week, and I kind of go, okay, that. And then the second is playing time, and the third is studying time, and then the lock-in is probably next, and then the writing is sort of 2 mornings a week. 2 mornings when I bring my son to school, when it's my mornings to get up early, I drop him into school and I go to the coffee shop and I sit there for 3 hours and I write. That's I do that twice a week.
Sounds idyllic. Nice.
You've tackled some big subjects though. I've noticed with your writing, you don't. Wasn't gonna say don't hold back, but you're quite happy to put out there your views on particular subjects and in detail as well. So it's not just a case I'm going to throw out some throwaway content here on something that's the hot topic at the moment. No, actually, you'll take the time to frame it, to detail the history of it, and then offer a balanced view on it. It is really, really good. I mean, we can happily say what site that's on, Des, can't we? I think.
Absolutely.
It's
as long as you pronounce it right, because you can get in trouble if you just get one letter wrong.
Oh, really? Yeah. That's very true. Yeah. Go on, I'll let you pronounce it then. Yeah. Then I won't get any bother.
Yeah, I write sort of maybe 2 to 3 days a week for Vegas Slots Online News.
Yeah.
They're based here in Malta, and they approached me early in the year. I initially said no. I wasn't too interested, and then they sort of, I suppose, allowed it to be more tailored around the kind of column that I want. So they essentially wanted me to write the news, and I didn't want to write the news. And as they sort of pitched it more as like, you can kind of write what you want, then I became more interested in doing it, I suppose. And the trade-off has been that I suppose it's been good for them, because previous to me coming on board, they were getting very low readership for their poker content. And now their poker content is actually getting a higher readership by a factor of, I don't know what, 5 or 6 than their other content.
I'm going to guess a lot. Yeah. So
So you missed it, but we're in the money. Boom.
Yeah. No, I just saw it go. I just saw it go now.
Ring a bell.
So we're gonna live dangerously now and just.
Well, I was going to say. So what do you do? So you've now. So it was. I mentioned it was €100
cups
buy.
Are off.
So
the kinky handcuffs are off.
Yeah. So you've min cashed for $234, but it's there's not a pay jump now until 20th. So that's like 6 positions. So is it just a case now? Right. Okay. We can get a bit frisky with it. Yeah.
Yeah, we had fucking kings there and nobody was interested. First hand, the first hand after the bubble as well, you just think, okay, yeah, someone's going to just go, come on, let's just gamble. No one did. No, absolutely. Look, I'm the shortest, 23, 26. I just need to try and spin up here. I'm going to take every plus EV spot possible. I'm not going to turn anything down for the sake of trying to ladder to 20th or 19th or whatever gets the next pay jump. It's just not worth it right now. With 3 tables left, if I can get a couple of double ups, I'm back in the mix to maybe make the final table. The other small factor, I suppose, and I hate to kind of admit to this, but we're all human, is that we play X number of levels today and then we come back tomorrow. I would certainly, if this is going to be the only day 2 on my screen, I'm certainly not loving coming back to 4 bigs. So I might be a little extra frisky in that scenario.
That makes sense.
So yeah, I'm probably as loose as I could ever be right now, given that we're probably, I don't know, are we half an hour from the end of day or something?
I was going to say, you're playing to level 27, aren't you, tonight? Yeah. So you're at level 24 at the moment. So yeah, would you normally play a session on a Monday night? Is that part of your weekly?
If I make some day 2s, I'll build a session around it. If I don't, it's not always the case, but sometimes. We've got a very sort of low board here, obviously paired board, 2 5s on board. And we're going to c-bet this small. We're going to go 20% sizing. Obviously, if there's a 5 out there, it would be more likely to be in the hand of the big blind. This guy Soup Lees you would feel would probably could be trapping here. We are going with our hand, by the way. Could be trapping here, but
Good
our
luck.
hand is too strong. He could have 6s, 7s, 8s here, and
Here we
luckily
go.
he has 10. So
Nice.
we managed to get our double up, and we're back in business.
Fantastic. Well done.
Life is good. We just cashed the 133 over on a rival site, but it looks like right after the bubble we're gonna bust that one. So I'm left with just this game. This is the last game, and
but that's a similar situation again. When you're a short stack and you've just made it into the money, you've got to have the ability to change gear and just and change your game once you've got through that bubble play.
Yeah. So I suppose the best way to look at it is that the ICM is like a dial that can kind of go up and down, and there are periods of time in the tournament where ICM is more a factor and when it's less a factor. It starts off at the beginning of the tournament being almost no factor at all, and as people bust out, it creeps in. You get down to maybe the last 20% of the field with 15% paid. It's becoming quite significant. You get to like the bubble or like right on the cusp of the bubble, and it's hugely significant. Now it's insanely important that you lock up a min cash if your stack is not worth more than a couple of buy-ins. Making sure you actualize that into a min cash, it becomes very important. It actually becomes less important to lock up a min cash if you're one of the really big stacks, and if you can get yourself into a big clash against another big stack where you're ahead of his range, that's a great spot to like suddenly maybe turn your 15 stacks into 30 stacks. You should do that because less of your equity in the tournament is in the min cash, more of it's in, if you've got 30 stacks, making a final table run. So you might actually see two big stacks clash in that spot if they've got queens and kings or jacks and queens or ace, king and queens or whatever. Whereas little old me with my maybe one starting stack, or that's not much more than what I had at the bubble. I had to crawl my way through. Okay, I did take my spot with the 10s, which was a little bold, but it was really important for me to get through that bubble. Once the bubble bursts, well, now the cuffs are off, and yes, while there still is some ICM at play, obviously there's a ladder jump in 7 spots. Obviously, we're not that far from a final table where the ladders do kick in more seriously. But being one of the shortest stacks in a spot where we're not very close to a ladder jump, and frankly, my stack is not going to cut the mustard. It's not going to get me to a final table. I have to make some. It's pretty close to the cuffs being off again. That dial is wound right back down to being almost ICM insignificance, and I can take every plus EV spot again.
So I will just switch the table. Des, so you're getting the right. I'll have to stop sharing and reach.
That's all right, my friend.
Give me a second.
So we defend the big blind here, and the board came ace high, 2 4s and a king. It's obviously much better board for his range as the pre-flop raiser. Obviously, he's going to have a lot of ace X's. But he has checks. It makes me feel like he's probably got a hand like 8s, 9s, 10s here a lot of the time. He might even have queens. That would make a lot of sense for the line he's taken. Might mean that I could come out representing here, but I am going to check. And I'm probably going to lose. I imagine I might get a thin value bet here. A guy with queens might thin value bet. Guy with 10s, 9s, 8s probably not going to bother anymore. I have pocket 2s for what it's worth. So again, perfectly fine to call for one big here and try and set mine, but easy fold now.
Yeah, I noticed Peter Wigglesworth mentioned earlier on this evening that you were very calm in your delivery of your strategy, right? It's very clear that you're very comfortable and calm around your decision making. I think that's just another classic example, happy to set mine, but equally happy to get rid of the hand. It's not as easy for a lot of players to do that.
Yeah, people can get maybe more attached than they should to hands, but again, geez, not to belabor the point, but this is my 15th year of poker, and like anyone who's 15 years in any job, and I appreciate a lot of your audience are amateurs. They play poker for fun. They might play once a week, twice a week, and it's the way they blow off steam. And maybe they make a bit of money while they blow off steam, which is great, and hopefully they do. Or maybe they lose a negligible amount and they don't mind because it's the price of a cinema ticket, and that's all good too. But for them, maybe every spot they get into feels a little bit different because it's less regular, and they have less expertise. But I couldn't do their job, in the same respect. So it just comes down to experience, I think, really.
When you look at a typical poker schedule these days, David, obviously ton of rebuys, multi-days, late reg, and increasingly faster tournaments, roulette tournaments, that sort of stuff, spin and goes, what have you. Well, where do you think is poker heading to? What do you think will a typical poker event look like in 5 years plus time? Any idea? Any sense?
I think vanilla poker is not going to ever be dead, because I think, with all the bells and whistles we put on poker to make it more interesting, make it more alluring for a gambler, make it more alluring for a player who maybe, like, for example, PKOs are a brilliant invention, because they create a situation where you could win money at any moment. You could bank some money at any moment. And that's the kind of immediate thrill that people love. And the beautiful thing about that is it's also created this whole new strategy around it, which, by the way, shout out to my partner in crime, Tara O'Carney, wrote a phenomenal book on. PKO Poker Strategy is available on Amazon. I think you can get it on Kindle very cheaply, probably for $10. And it will give you loads of great advice on how to master that format. And I think it's a great new format in the game. But I don't think vanilla poker is going anywhere, because I think a classic, well-structured tournament is just, the Cadillac. It's the classic thing, and I think live poker. There we go. Look at that. Thank you very much.
Oh, I like that. That's impressive.
I should do that as well. I should have been able. I didn't have it on hand.
To be honest, if you want to, and if you want to buy two, if you want to buy 2 books, then you can get his other book as well.
There you go. Yeah. Well, it's always nice to satellite into a PKO as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah.
I think. Listen, David. I don't know if you know this, but. I don't know whether you're doing your homework or not, Leigh, but we've got Mr. O'Kearney on a show. We record it on Thursday night. I'm not entirely sure when we're putting it out, but we're recording that on Thursday night, and I have to say I'm super looking forward to it. Should be a blast.
He told me he was coming on, and I'm looking forward to it. So I'd say you'll have good fun with him as well.
Oh, I hope so.
But to answer your question, I suppose what's most likely going to happen is that online poker will kind of be much more about offering all of the formats. So you're going to have, vanilla tournaments that are maybe quite well structured and deep stacked. You're going to have some turbos. You're going to have some PKOs. You're going to have, all these new fandangle formats. Obviously, the sit and go is kind of, I don't want to say dying, but certainly, at a low ebb right now. I'd love to see a return of some, popularity around a sit and go format. But the spin and go sort of, I guess is where the weaker players, the recreational players, felt like they could get their most fun from. And where they go, obviously, the more regular players will follow. So that sort of happened there. Cash games are obviously, they have their other kind of styles as well. You've got like shallower stack cash games, and you've got your deeper stacked ones. But that's a kind of a classic format as well. I suppose the introduction of antes is a way to zhuzh that up as well. But I think, poker rooms are going to generally want to have all the offerings. And I would even go as far as say all the games too. I don't think Hold'em's going anywhere as the game of choice. I think it'll always be the number one poker game. I don't think any other game has any chance of catching it. But PLO's popularity has, rose and then sustained to a certain level. And it would be nice to see some of the other formats maybe become popular too.
What do you make of the World Series bringing in the format where it's you're all in kind of your first table, and then it goes forward and you're all in the money? I mean, it just feels like a bit of a gamble tournament. But is that ultimately where we're going to go with some of this, where it's going to be a bit more fast and frenetic, and you're going to have different formats changing throughout a tournament to keep it interesting for players?
Well, we call them, I suppose, on the EPT tour, and I think maybe they were first popularized by Full Tilt, I want to say, as flip outs. Yeah. The flip outs came about where you would play like a 6-person table or a 9-person table. One person progresses, you're immediately into the money, and now you play for a sort of a significant amount. 100%, like a 100% of the normal rake on that. So whether that's 10% or maybe it's 15 in a live context, seems a bit steep given that really, they haven't had to provide the same service. So I'd like to, for a start, see half rake on anything like that. I think if you see half rake on it, it's a fine gimmick, but I don't think it will, take over. I think it's the kind of thing people might flick in because it's a bit of fun. they'll either walk, they get to sweat their hand, they get to walk away immediately, go back to the bar, go back and do whatever they were going to do.
It takes bubble play completely out of the game, because effectively you're in the money with the same stack as everybody else.
It's just one format, right? So I remember 10 years ago people talking about roulette tournaments and these super fast formats. There was absolutely no way anybody would play those, but of course people did. Because there's always a subset of players who like to either gamble or reduce their lack of edge, all of that sort of stuff. So I think poker will continue to evolve. It always has done. David, being a sort of an Irish lad, did you grow up in a house that played cards, or where did you get your poker background from?
My grandmother, actually. My nan was she loved playing sevenses, which I think is basically a version of gin rummy. She was a devil for that. She taught me draw poker as well. So, I'd sit out on the balcony with her on a summer's day when I was probably a 6 or 7 year old, and she'd always have a deck of cards, and that's how I learned a bit of card sense, I guess. And then, no, there wouldn't have been any cards with either parent, but I had a circle of friends when we were all teenagers. And we all caught the bug from late night poker on Channel 4 on the telly. And we used to talk about it in the yard in school the next morning, and all the different characters and whatnot. And then that was really alluring. So suddenly our Saturday nights, which maybe would have been going over to each other's houses to watch movies or whatever you would have been doing at 14 or 15, probably, I'm not going to lie here, probably a sneaky few cans as well. And then instead of that, you went over and you brought a deck of cards and you played 5
home game.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Fantastic. No, that's great. And tell me, David, if you hadn't fallen heavily for cards, what do you think would David Lappin have been doing today? Journalist or something else, do you think?
Oh, hard to know. Yeah, I certainly hope I would have been writing, because that's what I wanted to do. And poker kind of distracted me from it and then didn't let me away. I'm limp folding here the button. The small blind has made it 5x, I want to say. And I have exactly the kind of hand that's kind of fun to limp, a kind of a 17 to 25 big blind stack. I have the kind of hand that I want to have in that spot where I can call some raises and I can, just like keep the pot small.
The thing is, you're early double up and change your game plan again. I guess that's the thing that learning from this is that you've worked your way into the money. Then the plan was, right, let's get frisky, let's get going. An early double up, all of a sudden, then you're reevaluating, right, what's my plan going to be now?
Yeah, well, I guess I'm like definitely in that particular spot. I'm just playing the merit of the hand. So I would limp my very strongest hands on the button here, and I would have a kind of a subset of middling hands as well that I would also limp in with. Some of those hands will become limp shoves, some will become limp calls. It's actually a very complicated, as ranges go, is actually one of the more complicated structures, because then there's also a group of hands that I want to shove, and then there's some hands that I obviously want to fold as well. So there's shovable hands, limp folds, limp calls, limp shoves, and just straight folds as well.
Are you also now doing it, because you spoke about not wanting to take a stack through to day 2 that's too small? So we've got about, we're in the penultimate level tonight. So we've got about 20 minutes of play left tonight. So are you already looking now and seeing, well, right, what's the blinds for the start of day 2? How many, is there a minimum you say I want to take through? Do you have those?
No, and to be honest, I'm more than happy to come back with a short stack. What I mean by that is that if it will make a difference in the very fringes. So if I have a hand that maybe works very well as a shove, maybe I don't know. Let's say I have it on the button there. Maybe I have a hand like pocket fives. Well, I might put it into the induce range instead. Like it might make a fine induce, but maybe it's like a slightly better shove to just kind of gobble up the equity. But I kind of don't mind taking a skinny induce, like turning a kind of one of my worst profitable shoves into, my induce range, because, I'll either double up and be nicely in the mix, or I'll possibly bust, and that's kind of okay if that happens, whatever. So yeah, but it's going to be very, very around the fringes, to be honest. And already having got back to, almost 20 bigs as I had, that goes out the window now. I'm back into just playing properly.
Because it's
any amount of wanting to kind of go for the spin up is back into normal poker mode.
I could have predicted that shove from the small blind there. That was one of those spots where you went, you know what's coming, don't you? Yeah.
But it's super interestingly, because it's unconscious decision making, right? It has to be, particularly when you're playing lots and lots of games. But yet the variables will change the decision. Right, so, and variables to a really tiny degree will change the decision. It's got to be unconscious because David knows absolutely what he's going to do, but little changes of the lever will make for a different decision. It's pretty cool.
Sure is. Let me just give you a quick update where we are with APAT. We've had a couple of events that have finished now, and the two Canadians that were chip leader with 3 players left in both of the main events finished second place for both of them. Daniel Walsh ended up scooping $722 in the No Limit Hold'em main event. Well done to you. Kevin Kelser from Canada was second, and Mark Lathwell in third. Well done to you guys. In the PLO, that was Tony Ross. More about him in a minute. He finished top of that with $410. Kevin Negley from Canada in second, and Patrick Coulter in third. And the knockouts finished as well. That's the last one of the night. That's all done. And that Tom Bacon was chip leader all the way through it. This is interesting, Des. So it was a PKO. So he picked up $75 from the main prize pool. $150 worth of bounties.
That's a PKO. That is a PKO.
He absolutely crushed that tonight.
He jerry-yanged it.
That is a huge amount of bounties, actually. You'd normally see somebody getting around the same amount of bounties as they would from the prize pool, maybe a little bit more. But to do double is, properly crush that tonight. So I've got a final leaderboard for the week. And as I said, I mentioned Tony Ross from the Ilfracombe Massive. He's finished top of the table. He's step 5. Des, so he's going to cost us 3 lots of $109 tickets for the week. His partner in crime, Yanni, finished second. Yanni's only on step 1, so we're cool with that. $5.50 tickets. Shout outs also. Igor Asimov from Germany was in the chat, says evening all. Well, he's said evening all in the chat because he's finished third on the leaderboard tonight. He's step 4, so he's going to pick up 2 lots of $55 tickets, as is Eddie Niaksu as well. And Di Farrell is the final one of the top 5. She's on step 3, so she's picked up 2 lots of $33 tickets. Quick shout out to our cheap date, Gordon MacArthur, who's made it in the top 20 again. So's Brendan Byrne from Ireland as well, and Tony Gentini as well. All the others are step 1, so yeah, we've done all right.
Fantastic. Well done, guys. Well done to you all.
It could have been worse.
It's all good. I tell you, it's all good. We like
We're
to see a
all
little
in
bit of money
a
going
here.
back to the guys.
We're ahead.
Oh, here we go.
Oh dear.
Oh, and we get there.
It's green.
Get there with the clubs. We've seen green. That's what we want.
Wow.
I think you're lucky. I think I've decided you're now lucky to have around.
Oh, fantastic.
What we want to do.
Well, listen, guys, I have a question, right? I have a question. When it comes to winning a race, right, what's gone wrong with this chap? Mo Farah.
Yeah,
He's gone. He's gone.
No drugs.
Just can't get it done. Do you think is it that, David?
Yeah.
The correct answer there is no.
Well, no, but the problem is though. The coach is gone, and obviously, and he said I've got nothing to do. And then all of a sudden, he's struggled. He was 20 odd seconds off the qualifying time, so they put on the extra race for him this week, and he didn't really even get close to it. So you kind of, I guess, at some point your body must say to you, enough's enough.
He's 37, right? It's I don't know if that's a big age for a middle distance runner.
I think middle distance, long distance runners could go on a lot longer. But
a lot of those guys don't go on. I'm a celeb. Get me out of here. Sort of mid their training program. That might have been an issue. But it's sad to see him go. And I assume we are seeing the back of Mo. I mean, he might do some long distance stuff, and I'm sure he'll.
It's been a strange sports weekend. Actually, not great for Wales yesterday on a couple of fronts. Obviously, the football was an absolute disaster. But the British Lions warm-up game saw a couple of Welsh players out of the tour, and obviously one being Alan Wynne-Jones, the tour skipper. Absolutely gutted for him. I mean, he's played nine test matches for the Lions and was
he had a great
this
season.
tour, and yeah, to do that and save both players up, but actually a good replacement from Ireland as skipper. So they'll go and do the business, I'm sure. So,
yeah, looking forward to seeing that starting proper. Talking about races going slightly askew. Tour de France. I don't know if you guys have seen this. Just a disastrous situation where some punter on the sidelines with a sign for the camera, and he takes down a couple of riders, and before you know it, you've got something akin to half of the field down. I kid you not. I kid you not. An absolute disaster. There are bodies everywhere in there. So sort that one out. I mean, if that was snooker, right, they're just re-racking those balls, aren't they? That is not going any further. So that was the Tour de France. Yeah, but it feels like we've got a summer of sport going now.
It does amaze me. Even with some of the, obviously, when it gets to the sprints areas, they tend to have it well barriered off. But when you're up in some of those mountain stages, the crowds are just, I know they're very fanatical about the sport that they love, but bloody hell, they don't have to put their cyclists and those around at risk.
Everybody loves a good selfie, Lee.
Sued now as well. That guy is being sued.
Is he really?
Oh, is he really?
He may be looking at jail time too, but he is being sued because, well, like apart from everything else, like how obviously fucking stupid it was a thing to do. It's heartbreaking stories within that. Like, you've got people who train for 4 years for this race. And game over day one because of this gobshite.
That's incredible stuff. Incredible stuff. Talking about really bizarre situations, this is my last random post for you guys. Have you been following the whole Britney thing? Britney, a legend of the past, David. I'm sure you liked Britney back in the day, and she's
from my era for sure. Yeah.
Well, I thought that.
Right, if you can find another show where we can go from discussing the Tour de France to Britney Spears,
to David's strategy on late game, but this girl, I feel for her somewhat. She's under a conservatorship, whatever the hell that is. And apparently there are concerns for her mental health. That means she doesn't effectively control her own wealth, a lot of decision making. She wants to have another child. Apparently she can't do that without the permission of her dad, which seems a bit odd beyond the age of let's say 18.
I think she has an IUI and she can't get it out unless they her dad lets her. It's insane. She's old enough to work and keep making money, but she can't decide how to spend the money or have any control over her own life.
Is that just American law, or is that a similar thing that can be a situation in most countries?
I don't know. Like, I guess it all stems from when she had a sort of a mental break about a dozen years ago. Obviously, it was splashed all over the tabloids. She shaved her head at the time, and it sort of made a lot of headlines that she was clearly having a nervous breakdown of sorts or whatever it was. Awful situation, and she deserved privacy and respect and got none of it. But it did provoke a situation with her family where they sort of took custody of her, and no matter how well she's gotten in the meantime, I think she was on one of their talent shows for a while. She'd been working, she'd been back, performing and singing, but not good enough for them to release her from this.
It's insane. It feels wrong. So we're in a hand here, Lee. We're going to take that down.
Yeah, well, David's actually gathered up a few more chips. We're actually kind of sitting 10th out of 19 now, isn't it? So, I mean, this is now starting to sit with we're in the last level of the night. So we've, you're just at a point of now just kind of, okay, well, you've got a decent stack to be looking at a day two now, yeah?
Yeah, it's looking good now. I was fortunate there. I did actually make some hands, like none of them went to showdown, but I flopped second pair and a flush draw on the ace 9 something board. I had jack 9 of clubs, 8 of clubs on the turn. So I checked back. I just don't see any point in betting that flop because there's just not very many turn cards I'm going to hate because I'm going to be able to continue on all of them. And I don't really see the point in putting money in because my hand will shrivel up in value if I miss my draw and I'm left with just one pair.
Yeah.
So maybe by the river, I could consider a fold if I maybe met with 2 streets or whatever it is. So I took a passive line, but I did turn the flush. So I was happy to fire a sort of delay c-bet, got that through. And then the next hand, I raised up ace-10 of diamonds. I think you were just spotted that one a moment ago. And the board came 10 high with 2 diamonds. So great board for me. A board I would always c-bet. So I kind of felt like I should still fire a very small c-bet in that situation. So I fired out a little c-bet. But got the fold immediately. But it's helped me chip up for sure. I think I'm about to be moved tables, so you probably have to find me now somewhere else.
We will pick that. It seemed
It
like
has
you were getting...
I'm not there yet, so don't bother clicking my name for probably another 10 or 20 seconds because I haven't been sat. I'm just sitting in a kind of a holding bay right now. Okay, looks like I'll be going to the table with the player called Sir Gordon, if that helps.
Okay.
I'm not there yet, but you can pull up that table, and that is the table I'll be brought to.
Fantastic. It feels like you're getting a bit
interesting
busier.
With the Unibet software there, so it just holds you there until you're ready to go. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so essentially the table broke, and we were watching the tables play out on the other 2 tables, or watching the hands play out on the other 2 tables.
Okay.
And until that happened, I was just sitting in limbo waiting. It's almost like I'm standing over the table with my rack.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah.
It felt like you've been getting a little bit busier in this tourney, David. Does that coincide with maybe you playing fewer tables elsewhere, or is that sort of part of your late game thinking?
No, to be honest, it's a function of the hands. I think dynamics will come into play again around the fringes. I suppose that's the thing I really want to emphasize to people out there is that when you do make these adjustments, maybe you make an adjustment for maybe arguably a silly reason, like I don't really want to make day 2 with 4 bigs. But like whatever your adjustments are, maybe they're ICM adjustments, maybe they're dynamical adjustments because, you know, you're down to the last 2 tables and you kind of feel like this is a good opportunity to build a stack for the final table. Maybe there's, you know, this is the last bit of the tournament before there will be bigger ICM considerations. So if you want to try and maybe play a bit more freely, now is maybe the best time, because if you can do that and it works out and you get into the top maybe 5 stacks, you know, you'll be presented with a lot more favorable situations when your opponents will be under more ICM pressure later on. So those things are dynamical and they're relevant, and you also might have spotted tendencies with your opponents that you're thinking, okay, that person's not defending wide enough. I might actually, you know, go down a pip or 2 in my opening range or whatever it is. But again, it's always around the fringes. Like I'm always talking about maybe going down a pip or 2, maybe taking off the very bottom of my shoving range and making it part of my inducing range. It's really small adjustments. Poker is about adjustments, but most of the time it's very small adjustments.
Yeah, understood. And tell me, David, are you able to keep any form of notes on these guys? Obviously, we talked about the anonymity, you know, that's driven by the change in usernames and stuff. But through the tourney, you know, is that just memory? Because the affectionately titled Tits and Honey was on your last table. Do you have any sense of whether that player is, you know, loose or aggressive or shit or...
No, I'm not positive, to be honest. Sorry, I have a really wonky one here. I think I'm going to make a very big fold.
Here we go.
I think I have to fold this. I'll let you know after. I don't want to influence it just in case.
So it was a raise from Sir Gordon.
Under the gun from Alamaken, and then a 3-bet from Sir Gordon.
Yes. Yeah.
So like a strong range, you would assume, coming from an under the gun spot, admittedly the chip leader, so maybe it's a little looser for that reason. Sir Gordon is not going to be 3-betting too wide, I don't think, in this spot. So I would make his 3-betting range maybe, you know, maybe 9s plus, maybe ace queen plus. Maybe he puts in a couple of, you know, maybe he puts in an ace jack off or an ace 5 suited to kind of, you know, give himself some board coverage and have a couple of bluffs. But I kind of feel like that range is tight. Now, my hand was pretty damn good. Well, I'm really happy that they're kind of fighting for it here, because it makes me feel like my hand was no good. As I said, I'll let you know at the end, just in case either of these guys are watching the stream. Obviously, they can do some card removal if I say my hand, so I won't do that. But suffice to say, I would really like to find out both of their hands here for my own peace of mind, because I could have turned down an amazing spot, but it just doesn't feel right now. You know, the more discerned people out there have probably worked out my hand, because they've probably worked out what the worst hand they would have just gone with and shoved, and they've probably worked out the hand that they might very begrudgingly fold. So if they have, they've probably figured it out. But again, I don't want to prejudge. Small bet here now. So Sir Gordon, having faced the check raise, is now facing another check, and he looks like he's going for a small bet. That's quite nice from a balance point of view, because that can do two things. One, it can be inducing the shove here if he's maybe sitting there with an overpair or tens. It's kind of a clever bet, but it also can work if he's sitting there with like maybe pocket jacks or pocket nines, and he just wants to get to showdown cheaper, and it might go check then. So he has both options here. I suppose we're going to find out whether he was doing it maybe with value in mind, or he was doing it with cheaper showdown in mind. It looks like he was doing it with value in mind, because he's going for it here. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't show up with aces or kings in this spot, frankly. I think that's a very likely couple of holdings he's going to have. We don't get to see it. I folded jacks pre, just for the record. So that was a bit wonky. I think I probably have to go with queens. I think queens is just probably a little too strong, and I might have had to just close my eyes and lamp it in. But jacks, yeah, I did let it go.
Do you feel with Sir Gordon's betting there that your jacks wouldn't have been good?
Yeah, like firstly, I think his 3-bet range is supposed to be pretty damn strong in that spot. Now, I do beat a couple of the hands that do it, and I do flip with, flips where I'm 55, 56% with a few of the hands that do it. So that's not a terrible spot, particularly if there's dead money in the pot. The problem I have is that Salamakin has come in from under the gun, so we can't discount him having a real hand either, and to do so would be very foolhardy. So you combine the two things. You combine Sir Gordon's likely to be strength-filled range, slightly more than half, or maybe around half of the hands, pretty close, to be honest, pretty close with the kind of range I have, is the kind of range that he has. There's dead money in the middle that would make it appealing to get it in against the kind of range I have, because we can, get that dead money. One of us will win that. But with the other player there behind, I think it's too dicey. He could easily have aces, kings coming in from that seat. So, I think probably made a good decision there, but you never know.
I think so. I'm looking at his the way he was betting and the way he played that hand, which is sometimes just as interesting. You don't need to always see the players' hands at showdown. It's watching how they're actually choosing to play those against, because he's up against the chip leader there prior to that hand. So yeah, I would suggest yes, probably jacks was a very, very good fold. I think
the dream scenario, and obviously there's always, when you're talking about range versus range, there are always dream situations where you get your best result. The best case scenario is 2 ace kings. I'm in there with jacks with 50%, or because there's two of them, I probably have 62, 63% against the two of them, and then you're 62, 63% to maybe get it all in 3 ways. That's the dream, but there's far too many queens, kings, and aces lurking to make me feel good about it.
Yeah. Completely agree. So we've only got a couple of minutes left of this level, and then you'll be bagging up, sticking your name on your bag. For the night. It's
the best part of a poker tournament, Lee. Bagging up at the end of day one.
It's something nice about it, isn't it? It
a late couple of beers and home to your hotel. Very sweet.
That's it.
Yeah, it's
finding the waiter and grabbing a couple of margaritas off his tray, throwing them $5, loading up to take them away.
Happy days.
It is always interesting. And again, don't miss anything there, guys, as well. So if you're ever bagging up at the end of the day one, and maybe you've not been playing with some of the players that are on your table late on, just watch how they bag up. Those ones that pull the wrong strippy bit across and then can't spin their bag. You know they've not been there before.
That's
so
right.
They're the ones to go for. Yeah.
Started day 2, right? Straight in there.
They sometimes throw you a curveball, those bags now, in fairness. You can get a wonky bag once in a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh dear.
It's nice. It is just a nice. It's a nice feel. But we've got that with APAT events from back in the day. I mean, sort of 15 years ago, players just wanted to get to the dinner break. It wasn't even making a day 2. It was just if we can get to the free buffet dinner break, I feel like I've achieved something in life.
We've still got many of those, Lee, and we love them.
Yeah.
We love them for that.
Poker has so moved on, as you said, Dave, when you got together in home games when you were young. Of course, what do people do now? That you meet somebody that might be playing their first live event, and yes, you can tell they're playing their first live event because they're uncomfortable with the chips and the chip handling and the etiquette around the table. But actually, they've probably been playing tens, if not hundreds of thousands of hands of poker online and are vastly experienced about the actual dynamic of the game. It's just the live side of it, which is new to them.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And that's why you have to be careful. Like the guy who's fiddling with the bag or can't handle chips could be an online beast. So you got to be careful too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, can I just say, just for the record, like obviously, braggadocious as this may come across, what an ambassador for Unibet. Flagship weekly tournament, managed to bag up chips on your screen. Just saying, if you're out there, Kat Arnsby, Christopher, Andy, any of the team, this is what it's about. This is, clutch decision making deep in the flagship tournament while advertising it, having an overlay. Reminder, it had an overlay, everyone. You should be in this one.
Very, very good indeed. So they're basically, there are 17 players left. So you're back now to play this. Is it 7 o'clock tomorrow night? Is that Central European time? Is it? So it'll be 8.
Yeah. So it will be 6 p.m. in the UK. That's 7 o'clock for me here in Malta. I will probably fire up whatever football match is on, and I will. I probably have enough chips that maybe I'll build a session around it. It depends. Sometimes if I certainly have a couple of day twos, I will definitely just play a normal session from 6 o'clock or so. If I've got one day two and I don't have a huge stack in it, I might just see how it goes for the first hour before I build a session around it. But no, I think there's probably enough reason to just make tomorrow a poker playing day. Normally these days I play 3 days a week, so I'm probably playing Sunday, a lot of the time Monday, and maybe like a Thursday or a Saturday. That's kind of like the days I play. And then, the other days a week, as you say, making the content, making the chip race, making the lock-in, doing some strategy stuff, maybe putting out some articles. So there is that balance. Sorry, and I'm conscious that trying to come back to the question you asked me before I had my big tank with the jacks, is how my week is balanced these days. And I suppose it's very... it's very balanced between all of the things, and I do like that it is a nice way to live your life. I think it's hard being a full-time grinder. I did 60 hours a week online poker for a lot of years at the beginning, and I loved it then. I loved it, and I still love the game just as much now, but I would find just doing that one thing that repetitively very hard these days.
Completely.
Do you get the chance?
I got one final question from the chat quickly, which is just what's the percentage terms would you say is the chances of you being at the World Series this year in Vegas?
I'd say it's probably better than 50-50, but it's probably not much better. I think the two variables for me are, one, obviously it's mostly about safety and health, and if I have had one vaccine shot, I'll have the other vaccine shot in a couple of weeks, so I'm all good from that point of view. But the Delta variant is looming and is looking a little worrisome, and that could certainly become a problem worldwide, where we, even the vaccinated countries are in a much tougher spot than they were previously. There's talk of maybe not being able to get into America directly. You might have to go to Mexico for a week or two beforehand. That certainly makes that trip much less appealing. And then the third factor for me, which is probably just mostly a factor for me and not necessarily Dara O'Carney, who's weighing up similar factors, Ian Simpson weighing up similar factors, is if there is a very juicy tournament on my doorstep here in Malta, that's a good reason to maybe do. Do you know what? The thing about there's always more poker. There will be a World Series of Poker every year until I'm dead, and there will be online poker playing every day. There's always another game. So if anyone's out there, don't let poker get in the way of real life. It's a wonderful way to spend time. It's a wonderful mind sport, but there will always be another game. So if there's important stuff in your life, do that first.
Oh, fantastic. Well, listen, guys, I think those sounds like the words of wisdom to maybe leave our session with David tonight. We have distracted him through the whole thing, but you've done very well, David. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Now, I'm going to gin and tonic. It's all good.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
look at me. They made me go on a stream and I bagged up a stack on the main Uber game. You know? Also made the final table, even though I kind of didn't, of the turbo game on the rival site.
Absolutely fantastic. Now, please tell us you're wearing shorts, right? You're wearing shorts, right? Because I saw a naked leg there, and you know, well, we know how that goes, right?
I'm very first, but I'll be honest with you, I put them on for this, and the shirt. I was here in pants until that. It's very hot here in Malta. We're having a heat wave right now. It's like 42 degrees. It's fucking no joke.
Wow. I love Malta, but it does get hot over there. Listen,
Vegas weather.
We didn't ask you the question we should do, given what's happening in Malta. Malta has become a bit of a center for cryptocurrency and stuff like that. Is that a vertical you're showing any interest in?
I understand a little bit of that world, but I have next to no investment in it, and I would certainly far from claim to be not even an expert, even particularly knowledgeable in it. I'm not. I have a lot of friends, as obviously poker players are knee deep in it. If cryptocurrency went bust overnight, it would be a very sad poker world. So I have a lot of friends heavily invested in it, and I have other friends more appropriately an amount invested in it, and I am very lightly, almost nothing, to be honest. Like, I literally have a few buy-ins worth. And it's not something I've been very bullish about hanging on to fiat to my probably dismay in the end. But who knows what way that'll go.
Oh, well, there we go.
It's a worrisome one. If you check out the last episode of the Lock-In, which I recommend everybody now go and do, this thing is wrapping up. We did an episode with Parker Talbot recently, and in it we talk about cryptocurrencies, and we talk about do you know what, I'm lying, I've actually told you a big fat lie. We actually recorded a brilliant episode of the Lock-In with Barney Boatman, which hasn't come out yet, and that one talks about cryptocurrency and how we're kind of in the middle of a bubble right now, according to that guy from The Big Short, that all these financial asset classes are way over bubbled. So who knows, maybe that's true.
Well, watch this space, guys. That's all we can say, right? Because it's not an area that I'm particularly following closely, albeit, I'm sure we'll all look back with some regrets. Do you remember when Bitcoin was like at 3K and 4K and people saying, the bubble's going to burst?
I remember when the first time I became aware of it, I had a friend who tried to get me to buy some, and I think it was about 16 quid.
Oh,
and he bought 5. And I know it was he bought 5 for less than £100 sterling. I don't remember what the price was, ludicrous. But he definitely had change on 100. He lost. He broke up with the girlfriend, left the laptop in her house. It was a bad breakup, and then never went back. And now wonders, where is it? Like,
did I see somebody post an image on Twitter in the last week or so with a prize pool from some poker tournament going back sort of 8, 9, 10 years ago? Like, first was 160 quid, second was like 90 quid, and third was like 8 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
What?
I remember seeing that as well.
8 Bitcoin.
Can you imagine?
Oh, holy Jesus. Anyway, listen, we should say thank you very much to David Lappin for spending the evening with us. It was an absolute pleasure, sir. I learned a lot from it. Thank you to Lee. I don't think we have anything else to say to the guys, have we?
No. We'll do it all again next week.
We'll do it all again next week. So thanks for all of your play this week, guys. Good luck in the run-up to next week's leaderboard. Lee and I will be back on Sunday night. And I hope at some point in future, again, we can talk David Lappin to, come back and maybe share some more of his poker play with us. I found it superb. So that's it from us, guys. Have a great week.